Occasionally, we want to have a knot where the first throw offers more friction than the first throw of the square knot. This friction might help in approximating the tissue edges. Therefore, we can tie 2 throws and snug them down as seen here, and then return and secure the knot with single throws. Now, once more the surgeon's knot, in slow motion. Take the strands and cast the first throw of the square knot, and pull the strand through once more. Then you're in a position to snug down the first throw of the surgeon's knot and ensure that it lies correctly. Tighten the first throw appropriately. Then complete and secure the knot with 3 additional single throws, with hands crossing. Self-locking anchor knots should be used with and only with a running technique to anchor the suture. Compared to conventional knots, self-locking knots are smaller, have minimal effect on suture strength, and cannot slide. This makes them very useful, especially when knotting larger sizes of monofilament sutures. This is a self-locking starting knot. The needled end of the suture is here grabbed with the left hand, and the free end of the suture with the right hand. The free end is then wound 3 times over the fingers and pulled through the loops. The technique is clearly seen here in slow motion. A self-locking starting knot is made by placing the needled end of the suture along the index finger over the open palm and holding it in place with the 4th and 5th digit. The free end of the suture is wound 3 times around the fingers and the suture. These rather loose loops are held in place by the thumb. The free end of the suture is grasped between fingers and pulled through the loops. The self-locking starting knot locks by pulling the needled end of the suture. A running suture is completed by picking up the suture through the last loop of the suture, and a new loop is formed. This is repeated altogether 3 times. The knot is then locked by pulling the end of the suture through the last loop. And one more time in slow motion. A self-locking finishing knot is made by picking up the suture with the thumb and the index finger through the last stitch. The suture is then pulled through the stitch and a new loop is formed. The procedure is repeated through the new loop. This is repeated altogether 3 times. The knot locks when the suture is pulled altogether through the last loop. Both a square knot as well as a surgeon's knot can be made by using an instrument. Take the instrument with 1 throw over it, grasp the short end of the strand, and gently pull it through, and snug it down by pulling the instrument towards you. Then do an opposite turn again, grasping the end of the short strand. Pull it through away from you, and you'll see the picture of a classic square knot. And here is the same knot in slow motion. The knot must be secured by repeating this procedure. When tying the surgeon's knot with an instrument, the suture is wound 2 times around the instrument. Make sure that the first throw lies nice and flat, and the hands are crossed with each throw. Here is the surgeon's knot with an instrument one more time. Secure the knot with a square knot. We'll now demonstrate some common faults in knot tying. A satisfactory square knot requires alternating throws of index finger and middle finger knots, crossing the hands with each throw. For example, we could do the correct throw one time, but then tie the same type of knot, the index finger knot, and although we cross our hands, still not have a square knot. And if we do an index finger knot but don't cross our hands, we will not have the correct throw for a square knot. Another common fault is for the surgeon to hold one end of the strand up and tie around it, and although they may appear to tie alternate knots and cross their hands, they are actually tying around the strand. Then one strand is running straight through the knot, resulting in what is virtually a slip knot, and the strand can be withdrawn. This is therefore not a secure knot. Here we see an index finger knot being correctly laid, and a middle finger knot being correctly made, but the hands not crossing, and again we do not end up with a square knot. As demonstrated, this knot is not a secure knot. If tension on the knot is not applied horizontally, a square knot might turn into a slip knot, as demonstrated here. This is a square knot, a surgeon's knot, and a granny knot. Because the granny knot is not a secure knot, it should be avoided. To conclude this session, let's look once more at the correct way of tying a one-handed square knot. Index finger knot, crossing the hands, middle finger knot, and crossing the hands again. For a secure knot, 4 throws are required.